Westerns, a genre of movie that focuses on a time period of American history that has a certain level of mystique and grit that's captured audiences for generations. They usually feature a dark, rough around the edges protagonist who are on a tale of revenge or redemption. There's a lot of significant westerns in cinema history, but for me personally, there's one western that separates itself from the pack and from start to finish is an action-packed, gun-wrenching story that'll force laughs as well as tears by the time you finish.
Django, have you always been alone? Django, have you never loved again?
If you watched or listened to the podcast for any length or amount of time, you'll know that my favorite place to usually see and experience in movies or video games is usually feudal era Japan. You'll also know that my favorite movie of all time is Django. So I know you've got to be thinking to yourself, why the hell is this his favorite movie then? I'm really glad you asked. In an effort to keep this video from being like 5 hours long, I'm gonna try my best to explain the infinite amounts of reasons that I have for loving this movie into simple categories, and I'm gonna do my best to explain these categories so that you can understand just how much I love this movie and what makes it so dope.
It's a pretty eclectic soundtrack, as is most of my soundtracks. This one in particular, though, is a neat mix of old school songs, spaghetti western soundtrack pieces, and some new music, which is actually a very first for me.
First and foremost, the biggest reason why this movie will sit forever special in my heart is the music. This soundtrack is a combination of a collection of legendary spaghetti westerns, like that of the main title of this movie, Django, which is originally from the 1960s version of the movie. There are also some original songs made for the soundtrack from some of my favorite artists of all time, like that of Rick Ross, John Legend,
You better call the police, call the coroner.
and Anthony Hamilton.
I'm looking for freedom, looking for freedom.
The thing I appreciate about this soundtrack so much is that the quality of the music is so good, I just sit and listen to it like I would any other of my favorite songs. I can't count the number of times I've been in the gym getting a workout in and been playing 100 Black Coffins, or vibed out of my car on a long car ride home and played His Name Was King in my car and sung to that at the top of my lungs. The only thing that I can really think of that matches this in soundtrack quality and dopeness is that of the Black Panther soundtrack. The only caveat to that is that a lot of those songs that were on that Black Panther soundtrack weren't actually used in the movie during the film. With Django, every single song that you're going to hear on the soundtrack was used in the film to set a mood or a tone, and sometimes tell the story of a character without providing a lot of actor exposition. You can see examples of this in the theme songs of Dr. King Schultz and the theme songs of Django himself, which Quentin Tarantino himself spoke about where his inspiration came from and where that music came from.
The next song coming up is another spaghetti western theme song. It's from a movie called His Name Is King. This song in the film is the theme song to the character that Christoph Waltz plays in the film. His name is Dr. King Schultz. I came across this song on a collection of spaghetti western soundtrack pieces of music, and I thought it sounded fantastic. I thought it would be a really great song for the film, and I was already writing this character anyway, so I decided to turn it into his theme song.
Acting in this movie is second to none. The cast is a mashup of some of the best actors to ever do it. It's like watching the Avengers at work, honestly. Although Jamie Foxx is the lead of this movie, and I do love his performance, there were two other actors whose talent really stood out and brought their characters to life. Leonardo DiCaprio as Monsieur Calvin Candy, and last but not least, Samuel L. Jackson as Steven. These three characters are some of the most complex and well-written characters in cinema I've ever seen, personally. Calvin Candy's character is something akin to the character of Homelander from Amazon's The Boys. He's a portrayal of a narcissistic asshole with almost unlimited power at his disposal and can kill the protagonist at a whim. The best part is that throughout the course of this story, this character both becomes unhinged and more unpredictable, keeping you in a suspense and on edge the entire movie. Steven is the perfect definition of those old-time sayings of don't judge a book by its cover, and there's more to something that meets the eye.
The character's Steven. So, and I was like, well, who is Steven? He said, just read the script. He didn't even tell me. And sure enough, I read it, and I was sitting there staring at the script, and I called him back and said, so, you want me to be the most despicable Negro in the history of cinema? And he was like, well, yeah. It's like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
Upon the first meeting Steven in the story, you're given the first impression that he's like many of the other slaves you've seen up until this point, very docile and lacking ambition. But very quickly, his wit is put on full display when he does what a lot of old men in anime do by abruptly changing their demeanor, showing the audience that although Steven is a slave, he's arguably the most intelligent antagonist in the film and a master manipulator. Everything I've discussed up to this point about these actors and their characters can be showcased through one outstanding scene that I will never forget.
But if I took this hammer here and I bashed in your skull with it, you would have the same 3 dimples in the same place as old Ben.
Hey! Now lay your palms flat on that tabletop. If you lift those palms off that turtle shell tabletop, Mr. Pooch is gonna let loose with both barrels that sawed off.
He's the guy who's the talk of the
I tried to write the script for this last section of this video, but I really couldn't find the words to express how much this movie means to me. For a lot of people, it's just a movie, good or bad. But for me, this movie meant something a lot more different than the most. Because of some recent tragedy I've had in my family with the sickness of my grandfather, it caused me to think back on a lot of memories I had with him that I really enjoyed and probably took for granted. One of my fondest memories is going back to watch this movie with my grandfather. Me and my granddad did not have a lot of things in common, but one thing we shared was a love for movies. More specifically, Samuel L. Jackson. I can fondly remember me and him in his movie room watching this movie for the first time, geeking out over the amount of music and amazing actors and scenes that we both loved. It's a memory that I've had for a while and thought about from time to time. It made me rethink the way I look at life in a sense. I've learned to not take for granted the little moments you have with the people you love. Rather it be a couple seconds or a couple years. You can't take that for granted. I can't thank the people that had a hand in making this movie enough for helping to provide a happy memory that I shared with my granddad that I'll never forget. And if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. This is a video I've wanted to do for a while since I began video editing and starting this YouTube channel. And I finally had the courage and the skill I felt to make this video a reality. I don't care if this thing gets copyrighted to high hell or if people genuinely just don't like the video. This is something that I felt like I needed to make for my own mental health and as a kind of an outlet to help me process a lot of the things that's going on in my life right now. Although I can't change the past and can't do things like spend more time with them, I can cherish those memories with my grandpa and hope to make more memories with the family I have and not take for granted what we're building towards the future. Again, this has been Charlie of the Then and Now podcast. Thank you for watching and see you next time.